Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another in our series of Facebook Live grassroots conversations with key leaders in the Congress. And we certainly have one today, and it's at a critical moment in Washington and really for our country. You know, at Americans for Prosperity, we've done over 300 grassroots events around the country back since early March, urging Congress to reject this massive new spending and a lot of the Green New Deal provisions and the Bernie Sanders socialized medicine provisions that we fear are going to go in a lot of these upcoming bills, especially this reconciliation bill. We have a very special guest and a good friend of Americans for Prosperity with us today. To introduce him as our Oklahoma State Director for AFP, John Tidwell. John, take it away.
Tim, thanks so much. Appreciate you, my friend. We're really honored to be joined by Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma. Senator Lankford sits on the Senate Finance Committee and on the Homeland Security, Government Affairs, as well as the Energy and Indian Affairs Committees. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. Give us a sense of the state of play as you see it right now.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to get a chance to be able to visit with you again. Thanks for what y'all are doing all over the country and trying to be able to stay engaged and keep people informed on it. State of play as of right now, we have a vote coming up. That's the final passage on the infrastructure bill. I think, unfortunately, it will pass. I will be one of many votes that will be opposed to it to say this is a terrible idea. It is loaded in debt and in new policies that are really the introduction to the Green New Deal. And in the Equality Act and other aspects that have been snuck into this bill on the guise of infrastructure. Then immediately after that vote, it goes from bad to worse because the next thing that will happen within the hour, we will take up Bernie Sanders' budget, which is really a framework budget. There's a lot of folks that have said, is this the $3.5 trillion? It's not. This is the next step in setting up the next $3.5 trillion. This is a budget document that they will put out there and put in place. That will give instructions to all the committees to say, you need to quote unquote come up with ideas to be able to come to $3.5 trillion. They already know what they're looking for. And then the committees will do that work over the next month. And then we'll come back September, October, November, be the next fight on that next $3.5 trillion. So this is a particularly ugly day in the Senate today when this infrastructure bill, I think, will pass, go to the House, and then start Bernie Sanders' budget process from there.
Yeah. Senator, do you get a sense that many of your colleagues on either side, really, of the aisle have a feel for just how inflation is really marching upward, and it's hurting a lot of folks? I'm on the road most of the time. You know, groceries, the price of milk, heck, meat, hamburger meat's going up, plywood. I mean, just basic things that Americans need. Do you have a feel that many of your colleagues understand that this overheated spending in Washington is very probably the key contributing feature to that inflation? Do they have a sense of that?
Yeah, there's no question that what's happening in inflation right around the country, prices going up, are directly connected to that $2 trillion bill that was passed by Democrats, straight party vote in March. And I would tell you, a lot of Republicans that I talk to talk a lot about inflation, rising prices, what's happened in labor, that you've got this shortage of labor, but people have got extra money everywhere from all this free money, quote unquote, that's been sent out all over the country. So the formula for inflation is not hard. You got not enough labor. People have a lot of extra money in their pockets. They start actually spending. You can't keep up with the process. Prices go up. We're seeing that everywhere. Democrats keep using the word transitory, saying, yes, there's inflation, but it's going to diminish. It's going to go away. And the most frequent term they have is it'll go down, it'll go down, it'll go down. But what's happening is, as you see labor that gets pushed up, that doesn't just go back down. As prices go up, it sets a new floor for it. It continues to be able to go up. So this is not transitory. There may be some areas, lumber we've seen start to come back down, but it's not near to what it was. Houses have started to decline again, but it's not near to what it was. And so we're not going to see this go back to where it was. This is a new floor that's been set on prices.
I think that most Americans look at infrastructure as investment in the future, but that's clearly not what this is. This is more of the left's investment in their political future, not in the future of our country. Where does the precedent that this sets, where does that leave us for the next decade, for the next generation? Where does this leave us with this package?
So let me talk through some of the long-term consequences. A typical infrastructure bill, 4 to 5 years in length, very bipartisan because we have gas tax income coming in, we have inland waterway tax coming in, so it's paid for through the process. There may be some additional monies that are transferred into that, but everything's paid for. That's a normal process to be able to go through. This is not a normal process. They've taken the traditional infrastructure spending and they said, this is how much we can afford, but this is how much we actually want to do. And the rest of it we can't pay for, but we want to do it. And so we're going to do it. The reason that's such a big deal is when this 5-year bill is done, at the end of that 5-year bill, there'll be another infrastructure bill. It'll be that same size again or bigger. And so this sets the new, what's called baseline for spending for infrastructure. So 5 years from now, all this overspending that's done in deficit spending will be repeated again. Now, obviously, the federal government's done deficit spending, but on the infrastructure side of things, there's been a lot of aggressive work to be able to make sure that's not an area of deficit spending. Now, even infrastructure becomes an area of deficit spending. That's the challenge that we have long-term on being able to manage this and the policy pieces that are put in place. Let me just give you one of them. The Green New Deal aspect has a new way of taxing based on vehicle miles traveled. This is to take in for electric vehicles and everything else. This infrastructure bill that's passing does a pilot program in every single state, urban and rural, to be able to take individuals and to put them into a vehicle miles traveled study. And so they're laying the groundwork for 5 years from now to then be able to implement a new type of tax. This vehicle miles traveled, the way that it's designed is obviously it's based on the number of miles that you travel, but also the weight of your vehicle, the type of vehicle that you have, the type of fuel that you use, and also your social issues. Now, we have no idea because it's completely undefined. It's given over to the Secretary of the Transportation to be able to decide what are the social issues that we're going to score on. I don't know if that's if you're a friendly driver and you wave at people, your taxes are lower on it. And if you're a mean driver, they're higher. We don't know if this is based on your zip code. We don't know what this would be based on, but it's environmental features, weight of the vehicle, how you drive, and your social issues that the government gets to determine then what your tax is going to be. It goes from a gas tax that is equal for everyone. Everyone pays exactly the same gas tax, no matter where they are, no matter how far, that they pay this amount based on their mileage. And they can choose to do a lower gas tax if they have a vehicle that has better gas mileage or higher, whatever it may be. But now this goes to a completely arbitrary system that they're setting up. That framework is laid in this bill, and that will then bear fruit 5 years from now. So 5 years from now, people go, where did this come from? It came from this vote.
Senator, that is, that's horrifying. I had read a little bit about it in I think maybe the Washington Times or one of the National Review, but I didn't understand that, how explicit it is. So basically, the bureaucrats in the Biden administration will be able to write this program really as they see fit. That's what you're saying here, right?
That is correct. This bill gives the authority to them to be able to write and create this program. Now, the engagement of the program is not mandatory. It's a pilot program, but it is to be done in every single state and in all different types of communities. And so they're gathering the information to then present it to say, here's what we want to be able to do with it.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen watching, the Senate vote on this bipartisan bill, infrastructure, and I'm putting quotation marks around infrastructure, looks like it's today, as Senator Lankford is telling us. I would urge you, make your voice heard. You can click that I volunteer link right in the thread here. It only takes about a minute, minute and a half. You may be thinking, well, gosh, my voice doesn't matter. I'm telling you, it does. I used to work on Capitol Hill many years ago, and I know every member keeps track on a daily basis of how many folks from back home in their district or in their state contact them, the issues, and then whether it's a yay or a nay. If your senator's doing the right thing, Senator Lankford, for example, on this bill, thank him. It's good for them to know, hey, the folks back home know it and they've got my back. Or you may be thinking, I'm in Utah and there's Senator Romney, or I'm in Maine and Senator Collins. They're going to vote the wrong way. It's good for them to know that there's folks back home who are watching and who are concerned and urging them to take a different course. So make your voice heard. Take a moment to do that. It takes maybe a minute or a minute and a half. This is a big moment for the country. And Senator, could you take a moment maybe and just talk about what it means when folks from Oklahoma reach out to you, and even if they don't agree with you or if they do agree with you, what it means to hear from people in back home?
Tim, I have to tell you that right now we're in a phase in our country where a lot of people are apathetic and they're just sitting back. So when I get a call or an email coming in from someone that's from my state, now again, if they're contacting me from California, I say that's nice. Talk to the folks in California.
No, absolutely. I'm speaking. I'm with you.
If it's folks from my state, then we do pay special attention to it. But let me tell you the numbers on this. What's interesting, yesterday, again, we're leading up into this infrastructure bill, and we're leading up into this $3.5 trillion Bernie Sanders budget that they're presenting today. So yesterday, you would think would be a big day. I had 96 calls yesterday that came into my office, 96 total that came in. So yes, there are people that if you'll be one of those folks that will engage, you'll have an outside influence or outsized influence, I should say, about what actually you believe on this. So don't hesitate to be able to share your thoughts and your insight on it. Whether you call one of the state offices or whether you call the DC office, contact folks and let them know where you stand on that. It does matter. But again, the folks that are listening to this are very engaged. They're informed. Somebody that just says yes or no, you think, thank you very much. But folks that say, hey, I want to know about this. This I understand is a problem. Can we get rid of this or vote no on this? That helps people know what the problem is.
Tim, I know you travel all over the country. We're talking about what the engagement looks like. Give us a sense from your perspective, those folks who've actually engaged, what those numbers look like that you've been tracking. I know that Senator Lankford is followed that stuff as well.
Yeah, since we began this in early March, there was so much out there. I wonder, I think sometimes that folks maybe on the left who are unaligned on these issues, they throw up so many distractions, to keep away from the actual, policies that they're trying to ram through in Washington. But on this spending and infrastructure bill, we've had just over 1 million folks take action across all 50 states over the last several months. We wish it were more. We want to see more folks join it. It's a good start, but we've got such a long way to go to build the kind of grassroots energy that has a stronger impact. That's why we need folks to join this, John, and urging folks to join it. And again, it doesn't matter which state you're in. Even if your members are doing the right thing on this. I was in Florida last week, a week and a half ago, and Rick Scott is going to vote right, and he's doing a great job. Marco, I think is going to be okay. But even there, I was urging people, hey, let Scott know, let Senator Scott know, thank you. You urge him on, to do the right thing. Encouragement is an important thing in any aspect of life, and I think that also includes the public policy arena.
No, it definitely includes public policy. Let me just jump on that as well. It's amazing to me the number of people that will call only to complain, but when someone votes right, they don't just pick up the phone again and say thank you on that. That makes a big difference for folks to know. Not only I've got your back, but hey, you actually line up with where our state is and where I think we're going. Thank you for doing that and to stay engaged. As funny as it sounds, and with our kids, we know to be able to affirm and discourage. But sometimes with our spouses and with friends and with elected officials, we're like, only criticize. Well, we should learn how to be able to encourage and to be able to push back on areas of that. So it's not a bad life habit as well.
I agree with that. Senator Lankford, on the next bill, you made an interesting point that, this vote on the bipartisan is today. We're urging folks to make a last call on that. And then next is this Bernie Sanders budget framework. Can you give folks a little bit more of a window as to what that looks like moving forward, maybe, and kind of the key pressure points that, the key moments or way stations in this?
So let me kind of walk through this a little bit on it. 1974, they created this Budget Act. It's the framework for how we put the budget together. By the way, it's only worked 4 times since 1974. So it needs to be radically fixed in many ways. We need to chunk it and have a new way of actually doing this. But the way that it set it up was you do a budget, and the budget is simply that. It's a big framework. So for instance, if I can say it this way, you've got budget, you've got authorization bills, and you've got appropriation bills. And then at the backside of that is reconciliation. Let me walk that through a real family, what that would look like. A family may sit at the beginning of the year and would say, okay, how much money do we have that's incoming in this year? and what are some of the big things that we want to do. We want to do a vacation at some point. We want to be able to help pay down the debt on our house. So those are the big items. That's what a budget is like. There's not detail there. It's just the big items. That's what's happening today. You're authorizing would be okay, we don't want to just do a vacation, but we want to do a vacation in Oklahoma, because who wouldn't want a vacation in Oklahoma? So we want to drive to Oklahoma, we want to do a vacation. So that would be the authorizing language. And then the appropriating would be when you actually come to Oklahoma and you say, okay, we're going to Oklahoma, we're going to Beavers Bend State Park, we're going to stay there, it's a great place, and all that. So that becomes the final stage of it. So the beginning was, we want to take a vacation. The authorizing was vacation in Oklahoma. Appropriating was the very last one. Now, this last stage of it, now that's how the three sets of bills work in Congress as well. The last stage of it is called reconciliation. That's if, hey, there's some problems with what we did originally. We want to be able to fix those. It was originally designed to just do deficit reduction. We want to actually, change the way we do tax policy or change the way we do spending to be able to create more deficit or less deficit. But both sides have used, because it only needs 50 votes in the Senate, both sides have used it as we pass a budget first and then immediately go to a reconciliation, because then we can try to do tax and spending changes just with that reconciliation with 50 votes. We did that in 2017 on the Republican side to do the greatest tax decrease in American history, to lower taxes for everyone to try to stimulate the economy. It worked. We immediately, once we did the tax bill in 2017, by 2019 and early 2020, more people had a job, more people were making more income. If more people are making more income, they pay more in taxes. Literally, we cut taxes across the board for everyone, and tax revenue went up in the United States because more people had a job and more people were making more money, so they're paying more in taxes. That's what it was designed to do. That's what Republicans did in 2017. What Democrats are looking to do this year in 2021 is, with this budget, lay the framework and then immediately go to a reconciliation September, October, November, somewhere through there, to do the biggest tax increase in American history and to do massive new entitlement programs. They're calling it human infrastructure. Don't let it kid you. It's new entitlement programs, and it's socialism. It's taking from one group, passing it on to another group. It's what President Obama called redistribution of wealth. They've stopped using that term, but that's exactly what it is. And it's $3.5 trillion of it.
When I think about that process, it is convoluted. They've only been able to pull it off 4 times, as you said. The reconciliation feature, that means when you're hearing that means, and Senator, if I'm wrong, correct me, it means instead of that 60 vote threshold, which is kind of the norm in the United States Senate, they only need 50 plus. In this case, it would be Vice President Kamala Harris. That's right. What you're speaking of when you say reconciliation.
That's correct. It's the one shot you have where it only needs 50 votes, and it's a special budget process. And again, it's designed to reduce the deficits, is what it's designed to do.
Right. And it's supposed to be related to budgetary items, but it looks like, and you mentioned this earlier, they're going to attempt to push in there elements of Bernie Sanders' socialized medicine, potentially elements of this PRO Act, which is a big union overreach, kind of a power grab, the Green New Deal, elements of that. How does that work? I know there's a Senate parliamentarian. I know folks watching, you guys are dialed in, I know, because you're watching this Facebook Live. But it can be confusing for folks. But I guess the Senate parliamentarian, Senator Lankford, has to say, nope, that's not allowed, or that. Walk us through that process for a layperson.
So during the reconciliation, by the way, you're dead on that. You're correct on it, Jim. There's 5 tests that have to be done. You'll hear people call the Byrd Rule. That's named after Robert Byrd. It was a process that was set up several decades ago, that when you go through reconciliation, they have to go through 5 different tests to make sure it's actually budget related. If it's not tax or budget related, then it can't be in there. And the final element of that is the budget impact bigger than the policy impact? That's the part that actually gets to the parliamentarian, and it's a purely subjective call. If the budget impact is really big impact and the policy is smaller, or the policy is an old policy, they're just changing the numbers on it, it has no problem. But if it's new policy and a small budget impact, the parliamentarian will say, This is more policy than it is budget. It can't be in this. Now it can pass the Senate, but it can't pass by 50. It has to actually go through a process of getting 60 like everything else does. So it's not that it can't ever go through the Senate. It just has to go through only with 60 votes at that point. So for instance, Bernie Sanders has already announced that they want to do a massive change in immigration status. They want millions of people to be legalized that are in the country that are currently illegal in the country right now. And they want to do that through the reconciliation. I don't think they can actually pull that off, get that through the parliamentarian, because the policy impact is much bigger than the budget impact on that. And that would be brand new policy, but they're going to try it anyway. And to be able to see if they can word it in such a way and to convince the parliamentarian, no, this is really a budget thing, not a policy thing. They're trying to do that with climate change issues and with all kinds of things with the Green New Deal, saying these are all budget issues, though they're brand new policies. They're basically throwing the Hail Mary on this and to say, if we have 150 new policy things, we don't think the parliamentarian's going to attack all 150. And so we'll maybe get a couple of them through. So that's what they're trying to do with this bill. It's why it's so massive. And I can't even begin to tell you, $3.5 trillion for this one bill that they're proposing. A typical budget spending in a typical year, from everything from Social Security to education and national defense, is about $4.5 trillion total spending for everything in a year. They want to do an extra bill that's $3.5 trillion on top of the $2 trillion COVID bill they did in March, on top of the $1 trillion infrastructure bill that they're doing. Then they still want to do the regular budget of $4.5 trillion. I mean, this is a massive amount of money that they're talking about. That's just hard for us to fathom. Literally, there's never been a year in American history that's ever even been close to the amount of spending that they're trying to do this year and the amount of tax increases they're trying to do just this one year.
Yeah, well, that is sobering, folks watching. We want to be respectful of your time, Senator John Tidwell. You want to ask the last question?
Absolutely.
We'll it up.
You know, eventually, Senator, you start talking about real money. I mean, it's really pretty incredible. Long term, how do you feel history is going to judge the Congress's actions in this White House? You know where we've been over the last 6 months or so. How do you think history will judge that, and how will history see that in the long run?
I would tell you, this White House talks a lot, and the Washington, D.C. press corps talks a lot about Joe Biden being the next FDR. There's this constant FDR was this epic progressive figure that dramatically changed the entitlement programs and everything else. That's the constant conversation in DC about Biden, is that he's going to be this FDR-like figure. But let me just tell you, FDR didn't spend close to the amount of money that Biden is proposing to spend. It's not close. So the entire New Deal that was done under FDR in today's dollars would be less than $1 trillion. Biden has spent $2 trillion just on things around COVID, quote unquote, which most of it wasn't COVID spending, then this infrastructure bill, then the next bill. So I think that Biden will be seen as the biggest tax and spend president ever in American history, that he defined what progressivism really was, that this push towards socialism will be the epic moment really for Americans to decide, do we really want to go a socialist route with this redistribution of wealth that's constantly happening, saying some people are too wealthy, as Bernie Sanders says over and over again, some people have too much money, they need to move that money over to other people. Is that the direction our country is going to go? Or is our country going to continue to stay towards capitalism and opportunity, where everyone has an equal opportunity to be able to rise if you choose to be able to work and take risks and to be able to do that? This is the moment. And so history's not been written for this time period yet. The people that are on this call are going to be a part of that journey to be able to say, who are we as a country? Are we going to fight for these basic values of honoring every single person? Or do certain people get extra benefits based on the color of their skin or their neighborhood or what happened in the past, that they suddenly get certain perks on everything to try to bring equity, which is the conversation from this president all the time, is not about equality, but is about equity. Where are we headed is still the unknown. What we can do is to be able to live in the present and to be able to help push forward now. So I encourage folks to stay engaged. Future is not written yet. We are writing it. And to be able to engage in what we can do to be able to protect our economy, to be able to protect our basic values or way of life, and to protect the basic freedoms that we've lived under for 2 centuries plus now, and for decades, and focus on this basic thing of every person has the right to rise in America if they choose to be able to take those opportunities and to be able to do the work. And when you protect that right, no matter their color, no matter what color or skin they're in, no matter what their background is, no matter who their parents were, no matter where they're from, we need to make sure we protect that right for every individual. So let's work together to make that our future.
Senator Lankford from the great state of Oklahoma, well said. Thank you. And you're exactly right. History is not written yet. We're writing it now. Folks, there couldn't be a better urge for you to take action. For John Tidwell, our Oklahoma State Director, and myself, Tim Phillips, thank you for what you're doing, and even more importantly, for what you're going to do to protect freedom and prosperity.
Thanks very much. We'll stay on it.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.